Ready to go, Joe?
Ready to go?
Yeah, right.
It almost threw me over the side a few times.
Yeah, at some point you just disappeared into the white.
Hey guys, how's it going? As you've already seen, this is not your run-of-the-mill Joe talking about a car video. This is something not entirely different, but very different to the norm. About 4 months ago, I was contacted by a PR company asking if I fancied going out to Cyprus to test out the 2018 lineup of SeaDoo's personal watercrafts. Now, as you can imagine, that didn't take me too long to give them an answer. But my main concern initially was the fact that although I have a little bit of a motocross background and I raced mountain bikes downhill, so quite an extreme sport for many years, in terms of my experience on a personal watercraft, it was very minimal. I used to thrive on adrenaline and danger, and you know, my mountain biking and the motocross stuff would feed me that in my younger years. But obviously as I've gotten a bit older and a bit more responsible, I've had to sort of restrict myself to those sort of things, because obviously you come off a mountain bike at high speed, or you know, you get to a certain level that if you crash, you break something, you could injure yourself quite badly. Most of you, I'm sure, except for the pros or people that are very familiar with the SeaDoo brand, etc., would know what I'm talking about as jet skis. Now, I embarrass myself by going there talking about jet skis, but jet ski is actually a brand from Kawasaki. I just call the vacuum cleaner in my house a Hoover, but in fact it's made by someone else entirely. So I flew out to sunny Cyprus. It was beautiful out there. I'm just trying to think, what was it, beginning of October, but we're having like 25, 26 degrees. It was ideal, you know, end of the summer, so the water was about as warm as it gets for the year. It was just perfect. The only thing that wasn't perfect was the actual condition of the water, by which I mean it was extremely choppy. That was a good thing and a bad thing. It was a good thing because it sort of demonstrated how incredible these personal watercrafts have, sort of how far they've come. I couldn't believe how fast you go through this chop. I've been on a lot of boats, small and large, and trust me, even sort of 20-30 foot speedboat would have struggled through a lot of this chop, whereas these were just cutting through them. So that was the good thing. The bad thing was, after spending 8 hours out at sea in the chop, it really just destroyed me. You know, I was completely, it felt like I'd done the biggest gym session of my life. Now, within the 2018 lineup, here in the UK at least, there's about 15 different models, and within those models there's a couple of 2 or 3 seat configurations, there's various colour options, and they're kind of broken into 5 different categories. So we've got recreation light, we've got recreation, we've then got sport, we've got luxury, and we've got the performance models. Now they range from about £5,500 for the basic Spark up to about £17,500 for the full-on, very latest performance model with 300 horsepower, etc, etc. So after a very interesting briefing and sort of breakdown of what the 2018 lineup was, it was an interesting insight to me to see, you know, what people actually use these for, where they use them. You know, I just think of personal watercrafts, jet skis, as, you know, things that are used on holiday. People shooting off, going, having 10 minutes of fun on one, and you know, you hire them. That's all right. I kind of envisage, but obviously You've got your super yachts that have all got 1 or 2 personal watercraft hidden away in the back. You know, they're like the little toys that these billionaires hold in their super yachts. You've also got people that use them as boats, pretty much. You know, some of the bigger ones that I tried were so stable that you could literally use them. You know, you could take it off to an island somewhere and have lunch, or do whatever you want to do, or fish off it, or you can wakeboard from them. You know, a lot of them have got mounts in the back that you can clip onto to actually sort of tow wakeboards and stuff. They've got plenty of power. So that it sort of opened my eyes as to what these can be used for. They're not just this holiday bit of fun that I think of. Now, there was 2 parts to the day. There was a morning and an afternoon, and for one half you'd be going off on what they call a safari trip. So it was like a long haul, you know, across to this shipwreck that was about 40 minutes out to sea. That's what I did in the morning, which was great because it was like breaking me into something that was fairly new to me. Then after lunch in the afternoon, they had sort of coned off 2 areas where we could just take, not too far offshore, a few hundred meters out, where we could take these personal watercrafts out and just, you know, be rebels on them, do whatever we want, try the spark tricks, for instance, try and wheelie them, or try and jump over some waves, or just handling circuits. It was just like a playground. It was like the equivalent of a skid pan for cars, or a giant private car park, where you get let loose and you can just have fun, and that's exactly what all of us did. It was really, really cool. The first personal watercraft that I was given, I didn't pick it because I didn't know what I was looking for, so I was given one, and the first one that I was given was one of theirs from the recreation lineup, and it was called a GTI SE off memory. Now, it was a 3-seater, very stable. It was 155 brake horsepower, which for me, you know, not having driven anything like this for at least 10 years, and that was probably a 50 brake horsepower one. This was just, it was insane. Also, what a lot of these crafts have are brakes. You know, your right lever, it's like a brake lever, is the accelerator, and your left lever is your brake, just like it is on a bicycle, or I was going to say a motorbike, but that's a clutch on a motorbike. But the left lever is actually a brake, so, and a reverse as well. It's unbelievable. It also had VTS, which was variable trim system. It basically adjusted which way the jets were facing at the rear of the craft. So as it's accelerating, you could either have it nose up like that to get through some of the big chop. It was, you know, you kind of don't want your nose to, or you could get it to nose down, or anywhere in between. And the advantage I found of having the nose down, turn in was just amazing, and really amazing. I mean, you turn it in and it's basically down to how hard you can hold on, because a lot of times I got thrown off trying to sort of manhandle these machines. And so I started on that one. That was a 3-seater configuration, very stable. I think it weighed about 300 kilos, so it was pretty heavy, but it felt very stable. It had a ladder system on the back, so if you did fall in, which I did a couple of times, you could sort of fold this little ladder down, and it made getting back onto the craft a lot easier. It had a really big storage bin in the front of the craft as well, so yeah, you could lift it up. I think it was about 120 litres, and that was fairly watertight in there, and a couple of other little sort of waterproof or watertight compartments for your phone and stuff. First trip of the day is on safari. We're going off for 2.5 hours to a shipwreck. We're just gathering beforehand. Apparently it's going to be quite choppy. That's where we come out of. There's the hotel. Sweet. next one that I tried was I don't know if you'd call it the Daddy, but it's the luxury version. So it's the biggest one they do, and certainly the most stable, and I would say the heaviest. I think it's approaching 400 kilos. It feels heavy initially, but it's designed to be a stable platform. You know, it's got all sorts of seating configurations. It's called the GTX 300 Limited. I forgot to mention that, but it's a very impressive piece of kit. It's, even though it weighs a lot more than the first one I was on, with 300 brake horsepower, it absolutely flies. Now this particular one was also fitted with the new ST3 Hull. Now they went on about the ST3 Hull a lot in the briefing. It's an impressive bit of kit, and the time and effort and research and development that goes into these hulls is incredible. Now this is a new hull for 2018, and it's only fitted to a few of the sort of top spec. What I noticed immediately was how much better it was on the small chop. So where it was a bit calmer on your average, I guess, ride on these, you know, it would be the smaller chop, and it seemed to cut straight through that. On the bigger stuff, I didn't really notice that it was any better than the older hull. But what I did notice was on the older hull that was fitted to, say, the GTI that I was on, if the waves are going a certain way, it would sometimes tramline a little bit, whereas the new hull, it didn't seem to do that at all. So even if I was following 3 or 4 other personal watercrafts in front of me, I wouldn't get caught like in their wake, if you see what I mean. I could turn out of it quite easily. So and therefore the balance on the whole thing was a lot better. Now the GTX 300 Limited also had things like a proper sound system. I can't remember how many watts, but it was insane, because later on in the day someone else was playing music through it, and it was just so loud. So you play your Bluetooth from your phone through this music or audio setup, and that was super impressive. So it was this was a real boat, if you like, in terms of like you could take it everywhere, enjoy it, you could carry. It had the new storage system, which I believe was slightly bigger, but it's a lot easier to access, whereas the old one you had to lean over the bars and sort of open the front, and it, for me especially, it was a little bit unstable while you're doing that. And obviously if you're unloading or loading expensive things like I was with camera equipment, that could all go quite wrong. Whereas the newer system, the whole handlebar, in fact from just where you're sitting forward to the front, that whole thing lifts up, so you could actually sit down and, you know, unload or load or get something from the storage bin, which is a lot easier. It also seemed to be a bit more watertight. The whole design seemed a bit more resolved. Now after lunch we went out to play in the 2 allocated areas, which looked like a lot of fun from what I could see before lunch. I was watching some people out there and it just looked awesome. So the first personal watercraft that I managed to get my hands on was one that I'd been looking at the evening before and that morning, and it just looked more up my street. It looked like a motocross bike for the water, and I soon found out that it pretty much was. And that was called the Sparks, or the Spark Trix. It was mega, it really was. Now the one I was on was a 3-seater one, which I believe is new for 2018. They had up till now, they had the 2-seater one, so it was just a slightly extended version. But just super lightweight. As soon as you jumped on it, you could feel the weight difference. Now, the 2-seater one, I think, is about 160 kilos. And the 3-seater one that I was on was about 200 kilos. So substantially lighter than what I'd been on, especially after jumping off the GTX 300 Limited, which was closer to 400. So we're talking half the weight on this, and you could feel it immediately. You could feel it in so many ways. It was a lot less stable because of the lack of weight. And obviously, I think inherently it's meant to be less stable because that gives it its maneuverability. But yeah, jumped on it, had adjustable bars. It looked more aggressive. It looked very much like a motorbike cockpit when you're sort of sitting on it. And it also just felt very nimble and awesome. I loved it immediately. Even before I'd rolled off the sort of dry bay and into the water, I was smiling because I could feel it. And as soon as I got in the water, I was happy. And I think the video kind of shows that. The Spark Trix is a lot lighter, and most of that's down to the fact that it's made out of, I think they called it a polytech material, but the whole body is just like hard to explain, but it's just like a softer sort of plastic. I think they're only 90 odd brake horsepower, so a lot down on what I'd been on, 155, then 300 horsepower, then back to 90. But when you factor in the fact that they're a lot lighter, and just the maneuverability and the fact that I couldn't utilise the 155 or 300 brake horsepower anyway, the 90 felt, far enough for me. The VTS system on the Trix is a lot more adjustable, so it allows you to do things like wheelie, like literally you can wheelie it, and you could do it, as an amateur I did it within a couple of minutes. It was very easy, and it just trims the jets right up so that the boat just sits up like that, or the personal watercraft just sits up like that. It just wants to do that, and if it won't go fast, even if you're over the bars and putting all the weight forward, it just wants to rotate like that. So again, you can experiment with the trim. You trim it right down, and it handled just unbelievably. You could turn on, literally a square meter or two, no problem, and hang right off the craft. And I ended up in the water several times because I was just trying to take liberties. I felt like I was Marc Marquez on a MotoGP bike. It was so much fun. All I was thinking about was, how am I gonna, how can I afford one of these in my life? And living in London, how am I ever gonna get to use it? But I can understand why people get them now, because they're just so much fun. Now, the good thing with the Spark Trix was the one I was on, the 3-seater, I think was just over £8,000, and the 2-seater, which is probably the most popular one, is, I think it's 7.7. So for that money, you can't, it's like a super bike of the sea.
Oh, this feels instantly more like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Ready to go, Joe? Ready to go?
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I just dropped my most expensive GoPro in the ocean and it's sunk, so I'm never going to see that again. Right, now to wheelie it. So we trim the motor right up, get to the back of the boat, and then give it a nice little flip. There we go, up, we're up, we're up, we're up, we're up. Woo, one-handed, yeah. One-handed now, we're up in the air. Woo! it's unrideable when you've got it trimmed right up. It just wants to wheelie all the time, so you've got to trim that back down, and then you can accelerate.
Nice.
I jumped off the Spark Trix and onto the basic Spark next. Now, the basic Spark, to me, almost felt identical. It didn't have the adjustable handlebar. It didn't have VTS, so it didn't have the trim, so you couldn't do the tricks that you could on the Trix model. But it just, I really gelled with that. And considering the retail of one of those are $5.5 grand, I actually left, you know, that whole day after trying the whole range, and the basic Spark was almost my favourite craft of the day. I just loved it. You just got on it, had the right amount of power. It felt nice and light and nimble. It was stable enough. I was blown away by, you know, the fact that their most basic models seemed to fulfill everything. Yes, it wasn't as fast as some of the other models or as stable. It wasn't quite as nimble as the Trix, and it couldn't do tricks like the Trix because of the, you know, the lack of the VTS. But it was a brilliant piece of kit. It really was, and I could see nobody wanted it initially, and I couldn't get off the damn thing once I'd been on it.
This is actually the 3-seater, but pretty much basic Spark rather. It's 90 horsepower, and I tell you what, it's probably the most fun I've had all day. Now the Trix version of this, the one that I was on beforehand, was really good, but it was very edgy, and it just felt a bit too sharp for me anyway, for amateur me, whereas this one, it's just brilliant. I just love it. It's perfect amount of power. It's still got sports mode, and it just feels really good. So yeah, really enjoying it. That's a big boy over there. I think that's like the biggest one. It's like a lifeguard or coast guard one. Anyway, yeah, let's take you for a quick ride on this one. So again, with all of the SeaDoos, you've got your cut switch or your keyring here, whatever it's called, that if you fall off, this just basically cuts the ignition. So you put that in, and this one, the ignition goes on automatically. Then it's just a case of starting up there. There's a few modes, but I'll just put it straight into sports because it just gives it a better pickup. So you hold it down for a couple of seconds, you press it again to ignition, to engage it, and then yeah, accelerate on the right and brake on the back, or reverse. If you hold the brake down and accelerate, it's perfect. It's really choppy out here, but it just handles so well. And it's quite stable as well, believe it or not. I don't know if it's just because I've now got about 2 hours of experience on these things that I can ride it better. But they're just mega, they really are. Like I'm only on half throttle now. So I come up this point, just a bit to turn around and cruise. Look at that. Really accurate. It's just brilliant.
Now, the first of the performance models that I tried was a model that was in fact available this year, I believe, and it was called the RXP-X 300. That's 300 brake horsepower. It's got the older, or the current T3 hull on it. It will do a 0 to 60 mile an hour in a claimed 3.8 seconds. And it feels faster than that. You know, we're not talking about a car where you got the seat to support you and you got the steering wheel to hold on to. You're holding on to a set of bars and a front end that's slightly lifting. It feels very, very superbike-like. It's insane. Now, they're not like these big performance models. I believe that one was high 300s, about 380, 390 kilos. So it's a very stable weapon, but so fast. You know, just it's designed for speed, but also maneuverability. Now, even though it's big and heavy, it's nothing like the Spark in slow speed stuff, because you can literally, you know, you can get off the Spark and turn it in and angle it in, get your knee down if you like. Whereas on these ones, they're a lot more stable, but at higher speed, they're very maneuverable, very nimble, and you've really just got to, it's just down to you and how much you can hold on to, because it will do whatever you ask it to do. I came off that, which was the outgoing 2017 top of the range, and then I went on to the RXT-X 300, which is the very latest 2018 top of the range performance. And that was, again, even though it was 300 brake horsepower, I believe it's about 10 kilos lighter, but it's got the new ST3 Hull. So I don't know if it was because of the new hull, or you know, they must have changed a few things on it, but it did feel faster again. It also felt more stable, and as I talked about earlier on, the ST3 Hull is definitely better through the smaller chop. Just mind-blowing, that the new model. It also has a launch control system, which I tried a couple of times and I almost threw myself over the back. But yeah, incredible piece of kit.
Okay, so now I'm on the very last jet ski of the day. This one is got the latest hull, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it handles compared to the one I've just got off its predecessor. I can't imagine it being much better, but apparently it is, so let's try it out. Jesus Christ! I had most fun on the basic Spark. Was fun. I like that, and also the Trixer. I mean, these are amazing. These are like the supercars, and the Spark is like a hot hatch. You know, hot hatch is fun, but this for going fast, of course, unbelievable.
I had a fantastic day. Firstly, secondly, I realised that I can, at a 38-year-old ex-extreme sportsman, I can still go out and have extreme sports, get my adrenaline level through the roof like it used to be, which I still, you know, live for, and it was amazing having that adrenaline back in my system, but at a much lower danger level. You know, of course you could hurt yourself on these things. They're 400 kilos, 300 brake horsepower, objects going across the water. Of course, there's an element of danger there, especially when there's lots of you. But compared to, say, motocross or even mountain biking and downhill mountain biking, it's a lot less so, especially if you're on your own. And it's just, yeah, I had so much fun. And I urge any of you out there that either like having, well, you know, either need something to get around in, like having a bit of fun off the back of your boat, or like me, you know, used to riding motocross or super bikes or something that really gets the adrenaline going, these are just fantastic. And I'm talking about all the way from the basic Spark up to the last model, the RXT-X 300, which I forgot to mention was £16,800. So when you get to that level, you know, it's not cheap. That's about it, guys. I'm going to wrap this video up now. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I certainly had a lot of fun filming it out in Cyprus. I want to thank SeaDoo for inviting me out there and letting me play on your 2018 lineup. I certainly had a lot of fun out there, as you could hopefully see in the video. I'm going to put a link in the description to the SeaDoo UK page. It's worth going on there and checking out, having a look at all the accessories and stuff that I didn't talk about. There will also be a lot more technical information in there, which I didn't really talk about either. Any comments, please leave them below. I'll try my best to get back to you guys. Please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you're new to my channel. Cheers, guys. Till the next one.
I was like, yeah, boom! Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure thing.
Right.
Yeah, I've taken many trips off.
Yeah, I bet you.